24 differences between the Ten Commandments and the Mosaic Law, each with scriptural support and a simple illustration to make them easier to understand. 1. Written by God versus written by Moses. 10 Commandments, written by God, Exodus 31:18. Mosaic Law, written by Moses, Deuteronomy 31:9. Illustration: a king signs a royal decree versus a messenger writing instructions. 2. Written on stone versus written in a book. 10 Commandments, engraved on stone, Exodus 24:12. Mosaic Law, written in a book, Deuteronomy 31:24. Illustration: stone tablets versus scrolls. 3. Placed inside the ark versus placed beside the ark. 10 Commandments, inside the ark, Exodus 40:20. Mosaic Law, beside the ark, Deuteronomy 31:26. Illustration: sacred treasure inside the vault versus manual on a shelf beside it. 4. Universal and eternal versus temporary and national. 10 Commandments, for all people, Ecclesiastes 12:13. Mosaic Law, for Israel, Leviticus 26:46. Illustration: constitution versus local bylaws. 5. Moral law versus ceremonial civil law. 10 Commandments, moral law, Romans 7:7. Mosaic Law, ceremonial, Hebrews 9:10. Illustration: basic ethics versus religious rituals. 6. Cannot be altered versus had revisions. 10 Commandments, permanent, Deuteronomy 4:13. Mosaic Law, some laws changed over time, Hebrews 7:12. Illustration: a carved statue versus a clay model. 7. God spoke them directly versus Moses relayed them. 10 Commandments, spoken by God, Exodus 20:1. Mosaic Law, spoken by Moses, Leviticus 1:1. Illustration: CEO addresses team versus manager relays message. 8. Standard of sin versus symbolic shadows. 10 Commandments, define sin, 1 John 3:4. Mosaic Law, point to Jesus, Colossians 2:17. Illustration: law versus prophecy. 9. No sacrifices required versus full of sacrifices. 10 Commandments, no offerings, Exodus 20. Mosaic Law, sacrifices required, Leviticus 4:35. Illustration: ethical rules versus worship rituals. 10. To be written on hearts versus done away in Christ. 10 Commandments, written on hearts, Hebrews 8:10. Mosaic Law, abolished in Christ, Ephesians 2:15. Illustration: internal compass versus expired passport. 11. Everlasting covenant versus temporary covenant. 10 Commandments, everlasting, Psalm 111:7-8. Mosaic Law, temporary, Galatians 3:19. Illustration: eternal flame versus candle that burns out. 12. Directly related to God's character versus shadows of things to come. 10 Commandments, reflect God's character, Leviticus 11:44, Romans 7:12. Mosaic Law, symbolic, Hebrews 10:1. Illustration: mirror versus shadow. 13. Kept in heaven versus kept in the tabernacle. 10 Commandments, seen in heaven, Revelation 11:19. Mosaic Law, kept with the Levites, Deuteronomy 31:26. Illustration: eternal blueprint versus earthly blueprint. 14. Obeyed out of love versus obeyed for atonement. 10 Commandments, motivated by love, John 14:15. Mosaic Law, obeyed to cleanse sin. Hebrews 10:3. Illustration: loving parent versus courtroom sentence. 15. No animal blood required versus blood of animals required. 10 Commandments. No blood involved. Exodus 20. Mosaic Law. Blood required. Leviticus 17:11. Illustration: pure law versus sacrificial system. 16. Defines holiness versus points to Christ's holiness. 10 Commandments. Reveals God's holiness. Romans 7:12. Mosaic Law. Symbolic of Christ. Hebrews 9:9-10. Illustration: foundation versus blueprint of a future building. 17. Observed by angels versus not required of angels. 10 Commandments. Angels follow it. Psalm 103:20. Mosaic Law. Specific to humans, especially Israelites. Exodus 24:3. Illustration: universal code versus local code. 18. Will be obeyed in heaven versus fulfilled on earth. 10 Commandments. Eternal. Matthew 5:18. Mosaic Law. Fulfilled in Christ. Colossians 2:14. Illustration: permanent rule versus completed project. 19. Jesus magnified it versus Jesus fulfilled it. 10 Commandments. Jesus exalted them. Matthew chapter 5:21-28. Mosaic Law. Fulfilled and ended. Matthew chapter 5:17. Colossians chapter 2:14. Illustration: law upheld versus contract completed. 20. Breaking it is still sin versus no longer sin to disobey Mosaic Law. 10 Commandments. Still sin today. Romans 3:20. Mosaic Law. Not sin today. Acts 15:24-29. Illustration: moral theft versus dietary restrictions. 21. Revealed at creation versus revealed at Sinai. 10 Commandments. Known since Eden. Genesis 4:7. Mosaic Law. Given later. Galatians 3:17. Illustration: original manual versus updated edition. 22. Applies to all people versus applied to Israelites. Only 10 Commandments. Universal. Romans 2:14-15. Mosaic Law. Covenant with Israel. Exodus 34:27. Illustration: global law versus national regulation. 23. Simple and eternal versus complex and temporary. 10 Commandments. 10 Rules. Exodus 20. Mosaic Law. 613 Laws. Jewish tradition. Illustration: 10. Guiding principles versus thick legal code. 24. No feasts required versus feasts required. 10 Commandments. No festivals. Exodus 20. Mosaic Law. Includes feast days. Leviticus 23. Illustration: daily living versus calendar events.